Who do you think the Rams are talking to? Who do you think they should be talking to? This is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the April 10th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions, call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. It is really good to be here on April the 10th. I took Good Friday off. I by the time I was getting on the air, I said, who's going to watch us, right, on Good Friday? And I thought, let's be responsible. So I broke the string and decided to come back on Monday, and still all good stuff. And we even finally got OBJ off our back. And so that's kind of cool. And that's it. When you read about OBJ signing with the Ravens as a Ram fan, what did you think? For me, I was really happy. I was glad because you can't go back, right? When Robert Woods was put in the street, everyone was saying, oh, bring back Bobby Trees. You can't go back. I really appreciate what OBJ did. I mean, to me, it goes back to the Baltimore game in 2021 where he made the catch on fourth down. And I appreciated everything he did. But really, did you want OBJ back for 18 rocks, 15 guaranteed for one season? Baltimore, good luck with all of that. And no one knows right now whether or not it was that Baltimore's way of trying to ease Lamar Jackson back into the fold. What I got sick of hearing about was how they've never given Lamar Jackson any receivers. Well, elite receivers don't want to play with Lamar Jackson. It took a guy that's coming off 2 ACLs and missed an entire season, that kind of an elite receiver, OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., to sign with Baltimore, and Baltimore overpaid. The way the offense was built, now it's a new OC this year, the way that offense was built, receivers didn't like that offense. That offense was geared towards Lamar and tight ends, right? And they weren't going to get their touches. And everyone was on the news this weekend complaining and talking about how Baltimore hasn't done enough to help Lamar Jackson. Well, yeah, because that wasn't their game. That wasn't their game. Their game was Lamar Jackson, tight ends, tight, close running game, power game. And so they brought in OBJ. And if I guess that's going to make things better, God bless them. They're in the AFC, and we'll worry about it in February if the Rams see them. But I'm just glad the OBJ talk is done. You can't go back. Now, if the Rams re-sign John Johnson, yeah, for 2 rocks or 1 rock, Sean Robinson came back for the same amount of money. Okay. If that kind of money, sure. Okay. But to be a star, I mean, come on. I'm happy. I'm glad he got the contract, but I'm also glad he's off the Rams' radar because the Rams have bigger stuff. Hey, I wanted to get into some Ram news about players they've met with, and it's interesting about who you think they should be meeting with and who are they meeting the most with, and does that give us an indication on what they're going to do with 36, 69, and 77? Those are the 3 picks inside the top 100. But before I get to that, the question came to me again about what do I think the odds are about the Rams next year? And I said, I think I'm optimistic the Rams could. Everyone stays upright and healthy, and they figure out some things on this defense. And given that the Cardinals are going to be bad, the 49ers could be in some flux, and I don't think the Seahawks are going to come into full fruition until 2024. I'm thinking the Rams could squeeze off 10 wins if everything goes well, but that's if everything goes well. as it is right now. I see a 7-10 team, but those weren't the odds that people wanted. They wanted betting odds. And I am not being self-righteous with you folks because of my day job. I don't know anything about betting. I know that sounds crazy for someone who has been in sports, paid for it for 21 years, grew up with sports, but I never could bet. My thing with betting is I was never going to bet against my team. You know, I did the, hey, my team's going to win. I'll bet you $5, you know, straight up, win or lose, no points, none of that. I'll bet you a pizza, that kind of stuff. So I'm not being self-righteous, guys. I don't know anything about betting. I just know my team. That's what I'm into. If you want to know about betting, I got a couple of guys that, if you're following me on Facebook, guy named Aram, guy named Andy Villanueva, they're probably the two most informed folks that do that kind of stuff, and they could probably tip you off. That would be Aram Talegian and Andy Villanueva. And all respect to them. That's their realm. I'm staying in my lane, bro. And so I wanted to get that across. Okay, so who have the Rams met with? Well, number 36. The speculation is, and I'm first in line speculating. Even Steve Ramirez, who's giving me his mock drafts, the well-informed folks, even beyond us, Rams are going to go edge. Rams are going to go edge at 36 because it seems like they have to go edge at number 36. But when I've been looking and I've been going through all the boards and compiling all the boards, Rams Wire has some, other databases have some, all the names that have been listed. The Rams have only interviewed 3 edge players, just 3. Okay. One of them is Nolan Smith, who early on was a possibility. But after his performance at the Combine, he vaulted into the first round. And in some cases, people got him going as high as 10 overall. And so Nolan Smith was off the board, but the Rams have spoken to him. They've also spoken to Iowa State's Will McDonald IV, right? They spoke to him at the Senior Bowl. They've met with him. That's the only one they've really met with that figures in spot number 36. And the third one is Derek Hall out of Auburn. And he's down the line. He's more of a project guy, and he wouldn't be nothing but 5th, 6th, 7th round material. So the Rams really haven't talked to a whole lot of edge players when you think they need edge players. But here's who the Rams have talked to: 7 different interior defensive linemen. Okay, and the one that's high on everyone's board is Kalijah Kancey of Pitt because of the Aaron Donald connection. The Northwestern dude. Adebawar, I'm pronouncing that right. Editumbiwe Adebawar, funny name at Northwestern. MJ Anderson, Iowa State. There, your Will McDonald link. Elijah Green, Missouri State. DeJuan Johnson, Toledo. Roderick Martin, Western Kentucky. And really low on the board is a guy from Bethel University named Daryl Middleton. But the Rams have spoken to more DTs than they have edge. And it seems like edge is their primary spot. And there's a lot of edge players to choose from because Will McDonald figures to be gone at 36. And then there's Uzomah from Kansas State who's out there. And there's other names. Pulia, the guy from USC, right? Tuli, difficult name to place. We'll call him Chuck, right? The guy that led the NCAA in sacks this year. Puliatu. Is that Puliatu? Tuli Puliatu? Yeah, there we go. I think I got it. There's names, but it's so funny. The Rams haven't interviewed any of these guys. The only one that's legitimately a late first, early second selection they've interviewed is Will McDonald, and they've leaned towards DTs. Now, the funny thing is they haven't drafted outside of Michael Brocker's number 1 first round in 2012. And then Aaron Donald, first round, 13th overall in 2014. The Rams haven't really drafted interior defensive linemen high. They've drafted them third day. They've drafted them outside of the top 100. And most recently, the highest they've selected anybody is Bobby Brown, the third. Sorry, it was Ernest Brown the fourth, Bobby Brown the third. Bobby Brown, 4th round, 117 overall in 2021. And he made a little bit of an impact last year, and so it'll be good to see if he can develop. He's one of those big dudes, three spins and more that would plug up the run game. But that's as high as the Rams have gone since Aaron Donald at 13th overall, fourth round, right? That's fascinating. And then other players and positions they've interviewed. They've interviewed 4 cornerbacks. Everyone would agree that the Rams need a cornerback. I just looked at 2 mock drafts today, and it showed the Rams drafting corners at the 36th spot. It's not out of the realm that the Rams would draft a corner at 36. And yet they've only interviewed 4. Corey Trice, Purdue, who's projected to go deep, like 5th, 6th round. Carrington Valentine, Kentucky. Anthony Kendall, Baldwin Wallace. So he's not going to go at 36. And Julius Brents, Kansas State. He's high on the board as a potential for the Rams. But you would think there'd be just as many corners they'd be interviewing as DTs. The highest corner they've taken in the Snead era is Janoris Jenkins. They took him 39th overall, 2nd round in 2012. And they got great clicks, excuse me, out of Janoris Jenkins. In that same draft, they also got 2nd round. Was it 2nd round? I think 3rd round, 65th overall. They got Trumaine Johnson. And so they had a nice corner tandem there for a few years. But it'll be interesting to see if the Rams spend a 36th overall. They haven't done anything that high. Receivers, they've interviewed 5 wide receivers. None of them are receivers. These are back of the draft receivers, 5th round through 7th round for what the Rams have. Jake Bobo, UCLA, Tyler Scott, Cincy, Trey Tucker, Cincy, Trey Palmer. The one that's really interesting is Tank Dell out of Houston. Now, if you watch Clayton Toon's highlight reel, you're going to see a whole lot of Tank Dell, and you can understand why teams might like Tank Dell. And when I've seen Tank Dell projected to the Rams inside the top 100, I cringe because Tank Dell's about 5'8", probably maybe he's about $175, $180. And you cringe because you think, are the Rams really going to draft another one of those guys? And how would that look for Tutu? What would that say about the Tutu draft? And of course, that would start the whole complaints again about the greatest Ram who never was, Creed Humphrey. But you might want to watch the highlight reel of Tank Dell, and you can see how a team could be seduced into thinking, wow, Tank Dell, that guy doesn't look too bad. But the Rams haven't drafted a receiver that high in the Snead era, the highest being Tutu Atwell in 2021 was drafted 57th overall. And so was Van Jefferson in 2020. He was drafted 57th overall. I made the argument for a tight end. The Rams have interviewed 3 tight ends. Of course, when the draft season began, I was all over Dalton Kincaid. And there was no way we were going to get Dalton Kincaid. But players the Rams have interviewed, Payne Durham of Purdue, Luke Schoonmaker, Michigan, and Zach Kuntz, who was Rams Up podcast. Their lead guy is a guy named Mark. I don't know his last name. He was honking for Zach Kuntz, and he's back to the draft guy out of Old Dominion. Now, when I mention these guys' names, these are players the Rams have interviewed, and some of them have appeared in the Senior Bowl. So they are players to keep an eye on. I don't think the Rams would spend a 36 on a tight end if you're talking Payne Durham, Schoonmaker, Kuntz. If at 36, Michael Mayer from Notre Dame was there, or a Dalton Kincaid was there, right? Or is it Jake Musgrave from Oregon State was there, then yeah, I think you might look at 36. But as it stands right now, given who they've interviewed and spoken to, it doesn't look like they would go 36 with a tight end. Highest the Rams have ever drafted a tight end in the Snead era, and it's the highest draft pick in the Sean McVay era is Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett was 2nd round, 44th overall in 2017. Who else we got here? If you're looking at quarterback, right? The Rams have interviewed Aiden O'Connell, Purdue, Clayton Tune, Houston, if it's happened already, it's been scheduled to happen, and Jaron Hall out of BYU. Some guys really like Jaron Hall. I wasn't big on Clayton Tune. I watched his highlights, and by watching Clayton Tune, I got to see Tank Dell. And yeah, I guess you could project Clayton Tune as a guy that can develop. And he's scheduled right now. He's a 5th round draftee. And if you get him in the 5th round, I think I could dance with that. I didn't see Clayton Tune play live. I've just seen his highlights. I did see Aiden O'Connell play live for Purdue. And yeah, I wasn't real thrilled with Aiden O'Connell at Purdue. And I'm a Purdue guy. I like Purdue quarterbacks, but I wasn't real big on Aiden O'Connell. The last time the Rams drafted a quarterback, or the only time in the Snead era when the Rams drafted a quarterback not named Jared Goff, okay? When you're drafting top 10, those are outliers, right? So I really don't count them as much. So have the Rams drafted a quarterback in the last, 11 drafts? Yeah. Sean Mannion, 3rd round, 89th overall in 2015. He was the last quarterback the Rams drafted, the very last quarterback. So that lets you know that I don't think they're going to go quarterback inside the top 100. I don't know. My feeling is, man, I got a shot at Hendon Hooker. I'm taking a shot at Hendon Hooker, maybe even Tanner McKee. So I didn't get a chance to finish this. Again, when I talked about the Rams have only interviewed, they've interviewed 7 DTs, 7 interior defensive linemen. They've only interviewed 3 edge rushers. The highest edge rusher drafted in the McSnead era, or in the Snead era, is in 2020, Terrell Lewis, 3rd round, 84th overall. Fit the suit, just didn't have the motor. So that's something to keep an eye on. With all the talk about Rams drafting offensive linemen, so when you watch a mock draft and it shows the Rams going heavy, right, for the offensive line in the top 100, these are who the Rams have interviewed. They've interviewed 2 guards and 1 center. Osiris Torrance of Florida, Senior Bowl participant. He is in that 36th overall range. Tyler Beach, Wisconsin. He's a Wisconsin guy. Rams have had, Rams love Big Ten offensive linemen from Michigan State to Iowa to Wisconsin. They love Big Ten offensive linemen. And a center named Grant Gibson out of North Carolina State. They've interviewed him. Also, they interviewed a tackle from really way low named B.J. Wilson out of Quincy. And so odds of any of these guys outside of Torrance being drafted at 36 are really low. Any of those guys being drafted in the top 100 seem really low. And Torrance is a pure guard. Grant Gibson is a center but can play guard. The last time the Rams drafted a guard at a high level, depending on how you want to label Joe Noteboom or Bobby Evans, sorry to say the name, they were projected as tackles when they were drafted. Noteboom has stayed there. He's played some guard, but he's going to stay at tackle, obviously. Maybe move in, I don't know. But he got his big bucks playing tackle. Bobby Evans, we know, that one's gone. The only pure guard the Rams have drafted since 2015 was in that 2015 draft, 3rd round, 72 overall, and it was Jamon Brown, who was cut loose midway through the 2018 season, and his career was pretty much over. The Rams have only drafted 1 center in this whole era. Brian Allen, 4th round, 111th overall. So again, I'm not saying the Rams wouldn't draft some of these guys. They're not talking to them, so they would maybe not be considered to go for those positions at number 36 or even in the top 100. Something to think about. The highest pure tackle the Rams have drafted in the Snead era is Havenstein, 57th overall in 2015. The Rams seem to have a fondness for the 57th overall pick. So things to keep an eye about. And also on this last part here, the Rams have spoken to 2 kickers, B.T. Potter at Clemson and Anders Carlson, Auburn. Now, what I like about Potter and Carlson is they both kicked in big-time college football. Clemson in the ACC, Auburn in the SEC, so they're used to crowds and everything. But the last time the Rams drafted a kicker was in 2020. It didn't work out so well. His name's Sam Sloman. Do you remember Sam Sloman? Yeah, I think you're seeing him in the XFL right now. There ain't much to watch with Sam Sloman. Kickers are hard because they have the leg talent, but man, the second you start paying them money or you draft them before they even kick their first game ball in competition, there's already that enormous pressure on them, and sometimes they flame out early. It's really interesting. Cameron Dicker the kicker, was in camp for the Rams, bounced to Philly, found a home in SoFi with the Chargers. Matt Gay struggled early on in his career, but found a home in LA, and now has got the second biggest contract a kicker's ever gotten. So some of these guys flame out early and then later on catch fire someplace else. So, man, it's a real crapshoot to draft a kicker. Outside of maybe Mr. Irrelevant, I don't know if I want to draft a kicker anywhere inside of top 255 or something. But again, Rams did that once, and they got Sam Sloman. How exciting was that? Okay, it's commercial time. I'm Joe Torosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years, and now I do RamView. I was one of the founding members at Mid-Valley Sports. They cover the NFL now. They're focused on the Chargers, and I get to do this. I also write books. You can find my books at Amazon.com. My name is spelled Joetorosian, and I've written a couple high school football novels, been well received. And if you could check those out, maybe buy one or two or 5 or 50 or 100, I'd appreciate it. I got bills to pay. And also by writing books and doing RamView, it allows me to continue in my day job as I pastor a small church in Burbank Faith Nazarene. And you can follow us at Burbank Faith. It's called Burbank Faith Virtual right here on YouTube. There is a channel. Type in Burbank Faith Virtual, and you can see my day job. You can check out my website at burbankfaithvirtual.com. Also, my own personal website at joetorosian.com. And we appreciate the support. We appreciate the support of Temple City Auto Repair. Go see John and Henry if you have some issues. And the Kistler Law Firm. Please be sure to check them out. They are one of our most faithful and supportive groups, and allow us to do this and talk Ram football year round. Okay, I think we got the commercial in. It is time for Rams history. And so I want to wish a happy birthday to Sean Gilbert. Sean Gilbert turns 53 today. He was drafted out of the University of Pittsburgh. Greg Meisner came out of Pittsburgh. A guy named Aaron Donald came out of Pittsburgh, right? And this guy they're looking at now, Kalijah Kancey, played at Pittsburgh. And Sean Gilbert was a DT, came out of Pittsburgh. He was drafted 3rd overall by the Rams in 1992, 6'5", 318. Played 11 seasons in the NFL, 4 for the Rams. He had 42 and a half career sacks, 24 for the Rams. His best year being 1993 when he made his only Pro Bowl. He had 10 and a half sacks. Gilbert wasn't very good. He was okay, but for 3rd overall, you think you're getting Hugh Green, pre-car accident Hugh Green. And he was very average for 4 seasons. But this is what the Rams were able to do. Give full credit to then Rams GM back in 96. His name was Steve Ortmeyer. He dealt Sean Gilbert to the Washington Redskins. Now, Gilbert in 92 was the 3rd overall pick. Ortmeyer moved Sean Gilbert to the Redskins for the 6th overall pick in the 96 draft. Is there any franchise in history that doesn't know how to evaluate interior defensive linemen? You figure it's the Washington Taxskins now. Well, Redskins, Taxskins. Giving up the 6th overall for Sean Gilbert, they also signed Albert Hainsworth. Do you remember Albert Hainsworth? The guy that started with the Titans and basically ripped off the Redskins for that huge contract? Yeah, they're bad evaluators of interior defensive line help. And so the Rams dealt Sean Gilbert to the Redskins for the 6th overall pick in the 96 draft. So great job, Steve Ortmeyer. The first 5 players taken in that 96 draft were Keyshawn Johnson by the Jets. A couple of defensive linemen went after him. Defensive ends, Kevin Hardy, Simeon Rice, won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. Hall of Famer out of UCLA, Jonathan Ogden, and a major whiff at defensive end by the New York Giants. They drafted a guy named Cedric Jones, which is interesting because the Giants don't generally whiff on edge and defensive end type players, but they did that time. So the Rams still had the 6th pick. They also own the 18th pick in the draft. Some of the players taken with the first 30 picks, or picks 7 through 30 of the 96 draft. The Cincinnati Bengals took Willie Anderson. He played 12 years, several years as a starter, 4 Pro Bowls. Great job. Guy named Eddie George went to the Tennessee Titans. We know about Eddie George. And then the Rams at number 18 took wide receiver Eddie Kinnison, who had a 13-year career, and he was not bad. He wasn't great, but he was not bad. So the Rams took Eddie Kinnison at number 18, and at number 19, they took the Colts took Marvin Harrison. So good trade, but maybe the Rams didn't evaluate all the talent they had, or the talent to be had in those days. Of course, if the Rams had taken Marvin Harrison in 96, would they have taken Torrey Holt in 99? Good question to ask. But the Rams at 18 took Kennison, Colts at 19 took Marvin Harrison. And then Baltimore, a few picks later, took Ray Lewis, who became a Hall of Famer, played 14 years, 12 as a starter, 9 Pro Bowls, 2 Super Bowls. Yeah, we know who Ray Lewis is. So who did the Rams take with the 6th overall pick in the 1996 draft? The Rams took Lawrence Phillips. Lawrence Phillips. What a crusher, right? Set aside Lawrence Phillips' tragic ending. He's a local guy from where I'm at in San Gabriel Valley, Baldwin Park. But you set that to the side. He had a whole bag of issues. But just think about Steve Ortmeyer makes this great trade. He gets the 6th overall for a 3rd overall from 4 years before, who's got mileage, whose game is figured out, and he gets the 6th overall, and then they spent it on Lawrence Phillips, and it wasn't like there weren't red flags on Lawrence Phillips when he was at Nebraska, and that's how you kill a franchise, right? That's how you kill a franchise. If something good happens, you double down on the bad. But with all that said, Sean Gilbert turns 53 today. Also, born on this day in 1992 was Robert Woods. He turns 31 today. Can't go home again. So Robert Woods, after leaving Tennessee after one season, signed a 2-year deal. He is currently with the Houston Texans, who should be a fun team to watch with D'Amico Ryans this year. Jimmy Ward signed there. They still got Laramie Tunsil. They got a nice draft pick coming up. Maybe Bryce Young, maybe C.J. Stroud. And Robert Woods is just the kind of guy that a young quarterback needs. One of my favorite players of all time for the Rams, just because his game was so rounded. He was a pleasure to watch. Robert Woods was great. On this date in NFL history, and throw some Ram history in there. On this date in NFL history, in 1973, the Jets signed their 1st-round draft pick, a guy named Burgess Owens. And more people know Burgess Owens now as a congressman from Salt Lake, Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, than they do that he played 10 years in the NFL and won a Super Bowl with the Oakland Raiders in 1980. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that. Here's an interesting one. In 1976, the Broncos sent a 12th round, which turned out to be 333 overall, 333rd pick overall from 1978, and the 215th pick, 9th round in 1979 overall, to the Miami Dolphins, because they signed Jim Kick after the World Football League folded. The Dolphins retained the rights to Jim Kick after he had bolted to the WFL with Zonka and Warfield. And then in the back half of 75, the World Football League folded. Kick was a free agent or available to be signed. He signed with the Broncos, and the Broncos had to give compensation. That 12th round pick in 1978 by the Dolphins was a quarterback, was it Northern Colorado, named Bill Kinney. And Kinney didn't make it with the Dolphins, but he did become the starting quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs for a better part of the 1980s. And he was a productive quarterback. Bill Kinney was good enough to keep Todd Blackledge, who was a 1st-round pick in 1983, on the bench. And how did that all come about? That leads back to Jim Kick. And the Dolphins also got a 9th-round pick, 215 overall, in that compensation, They took a guy named Glenn Blackwood, who was the brother of Lyle Blackwood. The Blackwood brothers were journeyman safeties in the NFL, but they were also part of that Dolphins killer bee defense. You know, if you remember Kim Bocamper and all those guys that were the Blackwood brothers. And man, I'm trying to remember all the killer bees right now, but yeah, that's who the Dolphins got. That's not a bad compensation for a kind of a washed running back by 1976 is what Jim Kick was. 1998, I say this to aggravate my Raider friends. The Raiders lost Chester McLaughlin to the Kansas City Chiefs via free agency. Now, Chester McLaughlin wasn't great, but in the 90s, he was kind of all the Raiders had, right, in some cases. And so it really stung those guys when he signed with the Chiefs. But and here's the ironic thing, is 3 years later, on this very day, April 10th, in 2001, McLaughlin, old Chester, signed with the Denver Broncos as he was making rounds in the AFC West to make sure he went and played his old team. But Chester McLaughlin had a nice career. I think some people thought it was going to go a little further than it did. But I thought it was interesting. He left the Raiders for the Chiefs on this day in 1998. Wrapping it up with some Rams history in 2012. On this date, the Rams hired Bones Fassel as their special teams coach, the glory years of the Rams special teams. On this date in 2019, the Rams signed John Wolford to a one-year contract for $495,000, and no one really knew that John Wolford would become that important of a player in Ram history. Well, important, I guess we got to measure that. And on this day in 2020, the Rams sent Brandon Cooks and a fourth-round pick, which turned out to be 137 overall in 2022, to the Houston Texans. Now, that draft pick the Texans dealt ended up in New England, and they took quarterback Bailey Zappi. But Brandon Cooks went to Houston, stayed there, recently signed with the Dallas Cowboys, or went to the Dallas Cowboys. And the Rams received the second round, 57th overall pick in 2020, and it turned into Van Jefferson. So Brandon Cooks equals Van Jefferson with some Bailey Zappi sprinkled in there. I share all that because I want to congratulate and just applaud Rams Wire and their lead guy, Cam DeSilva. I don't know him. He doesn't know me. He doesn't even know about me probably. But he went full nerd, and I loved it when he posted last week, the last 20 years of who's been taken 36th overall in the NFL. Pretty cool stuff, right? Breece Hall, all those guys who went down the line. And I thought that's cool. You're not going to go any further. But today he had posted the last 20 69th overall picks. That means taken in the 69th spot, De Silva listed the last 20 years of who was taken at 69. And some people call that reaching, like, oh man, there's nothing to talk about. You could call it reaching. I call it working, right? There are a lot of sites and stuff out there that's just terrible. It's lazy and everything. And I don't really want to mention them by name, but Rams Wire and De Silva, that was really good work. I not that it means anything to hear it from me, but when someone just does that kind of stuff, that just means they got a passion for their job, and I can identify with that. And so who are some of those 69th overall luminaries, right? Cooper Kupp was taken by the Rams in 2017, 69th overall, and henceforth, as I generally call the 199 pick in the draft, the Tom Brady slot, we'll just dub the 69th overall the Cooper Kupp pick. And anyone taken at 69 overall gets the Cooper Kupp award. But in 2015, the Seattle Seahawks took Tyler Lockett, which seems amazing that he's heading into his 9th year. But Tyler Lockett was brought in, it looked like, as a kick return guy, a little bit of a gadget guy, and he's become a really top-notch receiver. Also, in 2013, Tyrann Mathieu was taken 69th overall by the Cardinals, and he's had a really nice career, The Honey Badger, he's had a really nice career. And then in 2003, the Dallas Cowboys took Jason Witten, 69th overall in 2003. So you literally got a lot of Pro Bowlers there and some Hall of Fame talent at 69 overall, which is a reminder to the Rams. Don't blow it. 69 is an important pick. You can't blow that one. Rams report April 17th. OTAs begin at the end of May. Mandatory 13th through the 15th. We've gone through the list of former Rams: Chandler Brewer, Taylor Rapp, Bobby Wagner, David Edwards, Brandon Powell, Riley Dixon, David Long Jr., Nick Scott, Greg Gaines, Matt Orzek, Matt Gay, Baker Mayfield. Jalen Ramsey was traded. Ashawn Robinson's free agent. Leonard Floyd was released. They're still out there. Traven Howard's still out there. Rams didn't offer Jacob Harris a contract. Rams haven't offered Matt Skura a contract. And also Ode Abuche and Ty Neski are still out there. And Rams have 45 players under contract. I mean, I think that's crazy. I think they're going to be signing so many players, and they still need a kicker, a punter, long snapper, and kick returner, punt returner. So that's out there. Looking at the Rams draft, I'm going to relay a mock draft here as we head towards the final stretch. I'm not saying anything with certainty, right? But what I could see the Rams doing is I can see the Rams moving back from 36. Some of these draft modules, these simulated drafts, allow you to trade back, and it would be fun to kind of see, or just make any kind of trade. It'd be fun to kind of see what you could do. But I could see the Rams moving back from 36, accumulating more picks in the top 100, and just filling out their roster that way. And they have and I can also see them with their abundance of picks, 5 through 7. Rams have 11 picks, but I think 8 of them are in rounds 5 through 7. And those things could be packaged together to maybe move into the low end of the 3rd round, or definitely into the 4th round to pick up some more quality players in that, top, not just top 100, but maybe the top 150, and looking for more impact players. Someone said, who do you have your eye on, Joe? I don't really have my eye on anybody. I got my eye on positions, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. And I just look for trends in the mock drafts. And there's some mock drafts when I see the Rams taking a safety with one of their first 3 picks, I don't feel like I'm looking at a serious mock draft. When I see the Rams taking an offensive lineman at 36, I'm a little leery about that one too. So yeah, I'm looking at positions as opposed to players. The latest mock draft I saw showed the Rams taking Cam Smith, South Carolina corner. That's a great pick. That's projected to be there, and I thought that one was pretty good. Number 69 overall, the Cooper Kupp pick, tackle Blake Freeland out of BYU. He's huge. He's 6'8", but he's about 300 pounds, and so he's not necessarily a brawler, a finesse guy. He's more of a finesse guy, and that would be kind of high for him to go, 69th overall, maybe outside of the top 100, but we'll see. Cornerback DJ Turner, I've seen his name before, at number 77. And then it gets a little wonky here, because at 167 and 171 of the 5th round, it shows the Rams taking Eric Gray, Oklahoma, and Ken McIntosh of Georgia. I could see the Rams taking a running back. We know they're going to take a running back, right? But I don't know if they would take 2 running backs back to back. And then at pick 177 was DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. My friend Steve Ramirez will love that because he's a UCLA guy. And I had not seen Dorian Thompson-Robinson in any mock draft for any team until recently. And he must be climbing the ladder. His trend, I have to check his trend sheet, because he seems to be trending up. But drafting him 5th round seems awful high. In the 6th round at 182, Rams got interior defensive lineman Jared Clark, Coastal Carolina. 6th round, 189, the obligatory safety the Rams always draft, and this one would be Daniel Scott out of Cal. I've seen his name before. And at 191, it shows the Rams taking tackle Warren McClendon out of Georgia. Pure tackle, big dude, 6'6", and he's not bad. He's not bad, but he's pure tackle. And neither one of those guys, Blake Freeland or Warren McClendon, played any guard, really. So we haven't seen, so far we don't know if they can move into the guard spot. So I wasn't really crazy about that one. And then 7th round, finally had the Rams drafting an edge. I hate to see, again, because I'm looking at positions, I hate to see the Rams waiting that long to take an edge player. and it's really a reach. His name's Nick Hampton out of Appalachian State, and really productive. Played 33 college football games and had 24 sacks, which is pretty good. Played in 9 games last year, had 9 sacks. It was only his freshman year or his sophomore year that he didn't have much productivity sack-wise. But this guy obviously has a good motor. He can play. Problem is he's a little undersized. He comes in at 236. So he wouldn't be necessarily that guy that's going to hold the edge. He can come off the edge, but he's not necessarily going to hold the edge. And then I thought this part gave away the draft for me a little bit, showing the Rams taking a second safety at 251, Jason Taylor out of Oklahoma State. And I don't see the need to draft a second safety. I just don't. The Rams always draft a safety, just like they're always going to draft a receiver, possibly. But I don't see them taking a safety, and completely avoids the tight end. They didn't take any tight ends in this draft at all. And I thought they went a little late with the Jared Clark selection for interior defensive lineman at 182. Again, the mock draft shows the Rams taking an interior defensive lineman at 182, but yet in their interviews and pre-draft meetings, they've met more with interior defensive linemen, which makes you think that might be a little higher of a position up on their board. Anyway, there we go. Throw it out there at you. Rams have 11 picks, and we'll see what happens as we get closer and closer to the actual draft, which should be a lot of fun. And then the frenzy afterwards to sign the undrafted free agents, and there's a lot of value to be had there. Okay, I went 40 minutes. I'm not going to go 40 minutes much more in these days, but it's just I didn't do a Friday show. Wanted to get stuff in. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you to our sponsors, Kistler Law and Temple City Auto. And thank you for clicking on. Please hit like, hit subscribe, and follow us on Spotify. We get our shows up late at night on Spotify. If I'm broadcasting tonight, it'll be up early tomorrow morning, if not later. But people have said, Joe, put it on Spotify. Put it on Spotify. Show's on Spotify, folks, but no one's clicking on. So if you're telling me to put it on Spotify, I wanted to be on Spotify. I am on Spotify, but I'm getting ghosted on Spotify. Here we're having a little traction. But thank you so much for your support. Hit like, subscribe, leave comments, share with your friends, and God bless. And we will see you on Wednesday. Take care.